Welcome back at our studio here in Hub Bratislava, where we are together at FTRNW Hybrid Bootcamp 2021. Today is the second startup clinic, workshop format dedicated to sharing experience with experienced mentors, experts in the field of investment, product development, service design, or strategy, in order to help you improve your setup of your company, of the startup or product you are developing and working on. We are going to discuss today the topic of your customers, and the main question will be, why should you talk with your customers before you make the first sale? Before we start, just a short reminder, you can find all the details about the program, about our speakers, and even the opportunity to chat with participants on our platform called FTRNW2021.org. If you have any further questions about the program, our chatbot Laia will be at your disposal. Now is the time to kick off today's session. We will be talking about the holy grail of every startup, every entrepreneur and its customers. So we will discuss your value proposition. We will discuss the process, how to get to your product market fit. And I will be joined with our very special guest. He is one of the co-founders of the innovation studio Kiuub, which is helping corporates to improve their services and discover new business opportunities thanks to gaining customer insights and the service design methodology. And he is also CEO of a family venture capital fund, Zaka Startups, which invest in scalable early stage startups with validated product market fit with the ambition to scale beyond our region. Ladies and gentlemen, please round applause for Slavo Tuleja. Hi, Slavo. Welcome here.
Hi, Adam. It's nice to see you outside of the office environment.
Again, right? How are you feeling today?
Looking forward. It's good to see some startups here in person, and looking forward to see some others online. We'll be discussing product market fit. That's an important thing in scaling every company. So looking forward to that, and I think we will have a pleasant conversation among each other and also with the participants here.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Let's dive into today's topic. Give us a short introduction about the themes and maybe about yourself also.
Yes. So first I would like to say hi to people who are not here. So hi, nice to meet you. So as Adam said, my name is Slavo and I hold two roles. The first role is co-founder at Kiuub. We are an innovation studio and we're helping corporates, mainly corporates, with finding insights from their customers. So identifying what is it that customers want in order to motivate the corporates to engage themselves in a customer-centric product development rather than technology-centric product development. So this is what we help them with. We do a bunch of customer research stuff, prototyping, launching, MVPs and things like this. And then if the company is more advanced, then we also look at analyzing customer journeys, improving these customer journeys, and we're also helping them a lot with executing these customer journeys. On the other side, I'm also CEO of Zaka. So we are a family office VC fund. We invest into early stage companies. Our average ticket size is around 400,000 euros. We don't have a typical fund structure, so we are able to support startups for over 12 years. We invest purely private money and we invest smart money since our founders are from various different industries. So that's the two main things that I do.
And today I also hold two roles because I'm not only the host of the bootcamp, but I will also share my experience from Kiuub because as Slavo said, we are helping companies to gain a better insight from customers and build and develop better services in order to find meaningful solutions. And my role at Kiuub is head of customer experience. It's my responsibility to guard our customer journey, gain insights from our customers in order to improve our services and better quality of the delivery. And I'm also a design thinking enthusiast, which is a methodology which you may be familiar with. It helps teams and individuals to improve their innovation capabilities And together with Slavo, we are one of or two of 8 certified trainers for the program New Generation of Founders, run by Grow with Google here in Slovakia, which aim is mainly to help spread the word about this methodology and help individuals, startups, companies to design better products and services thanks to customer insights. And today we will be discussing, as Slavo said, 2 topics. The first will be value proposition and also product market fit. And if we can move further, we have 3 parts of this workshop. As yesterday, the format is really similar. We have 90 minutes, and we decided to divide it into 3 parts. In the first one, we will discuss the value proposition and the product market fit. In the second one, we will look closer at the process of how you can focus more on your customers in order to get the insights and information needed for meaningful product and service development. And then on the third part, we will have a round of Q&As, and I believe you will have a lot of them. And one rule for today's workshop is that we really want to be the workshop really interactive with you. It's not about us. We can share some insights and experience, but we really are looking forward to hear your experience and your challenges regarding the value proposition or customer expectations. So for those who are here in the studio, do not hesitate to answer, to raise hands if you have any questions. And for those also who are joining us online, just if you have any question, raise your hand, we can see you. I will pass the word to you and you can share your experience or ask any questions you will have toward us. So that's the principles, and let me check how interactive are you feeling today. The first question from my side is that what do you think is the main number 1 reason why startups fail?
No need for the product.
Okay. Other examples? Slavo can write them down and put it here. We have anybody else? Istvan?
Yes, in my opinion, too often people want to fund startups for problems that are not existing or problems that are not really challenging problems for most of the potential customers.
Okay, so we don't have any problem to solve. What do you others think? Claudia, for example.
I think maybe the problem is that product doesn't fit to the market.
This
Okay.
we have already. Let's try something else.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
So product market fit and no problem. Definitely something among the top. What else? There is a third one which is also quite good.
I would guess ran out of runway or unable to raise.
Yeah.
So no money. Anything else, Adam? Just give us one more answer to unlock the next slide and the next question.
Beware of this. I think this is something Adam will be using quite often. So he needs at least 4 answers before we can move on.
Yeah.
I think that the sale of the product isn't as good as we have expected, for example.
Okay, the sales expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else here in the studio?
The team is not right.
Okay. Perfect. So 5 answers, and you unlock the next slide.
I think we actually covered the top 5.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You can find a lot of studies about the top 10 and top 20 problems which are responsible for the fails of startups. And number 1, as you may guess, is the product market fit, and the problem that we are trying to solve a problem which no one really have. Or we are developing a product which doesn't have any market need. And I think that 42% of startups which failed had this problem. And that's also why one of the reasons why we will be discussing of how to avoid this problem and how to help you succeed among your customers.
What we also see quite often with corporates is that they But it's similar for corporates and for startups, that they develop an idea for a super long time, 3-4 years. They don't show it to anyone. It's like hidden, super secret and whatever. And then when it sees the light of the world and it sees the first customer, then they find out that nobody wants it, but money has already been spent. So what we'll be discussing quite a lot today is how to actually set up this strategy of validating everything, so you kind of increase your confidence level in the product which you have by doing small experiments and validating the stuff which goes a long way. Okay, so what do customers want?
Tell us.
What do customers want?
What do your customers want? Let's start with the first row, guys.
In general, some solution that will help them like significantly improve the process or save time or money, I would say.
Okay, cool. Another example. What do your customers want?
In our case, it's more effective spending of influencer budgets.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. What about you in the second row?
I think that in our case, it can be that they want something they haven't experienced so far.
Okay, cool. What about you, online teams? Let's start with István.
Well, our customers want to produce more electricity from solar energy, and they want to produce that energy with less cost.
Thank you. Kasia?
Our clients want to the high quality product that gives them that has a positive impact on the planet.
Cool, thank you very much. Ursula, Foodbox.
So our clients want high quality products that give them a quality protein and it's good for environment.
Perfect. Jesse?
Our customers want to save time when they're managing Airbnbs, and they want to have fun and also save time when they're managing deliveries.
Awesome. Adam?
Well, our customers want to create more sustainable solutions for their businesses on blockchain.
Perfect. And Claudia, you are with the same team as Kasia, right? Okay. So it's nice to see and hear that you have pretty clear vision about what your customers want, but we think that you should go much deeper into the topic, and Slava will tell us a story. Why is it so?
And I like the fact that actually all of you answered, because we don't get this quite often. We get quite a lot of we think and this type of stuff. But let's start with the story, and I'm pretty sure all of you know this company. Yes, some of us visited more often than others. And there is a very good case study on what customers want versus how customers actually live and what type of activities they do. So what type of jobs do they try to achieve? And this is a very interesting case study. I think it was done in the 2000s, so quite a long time ago. It's used, probably some of you know it as I see you shaking your heads. McDonald's decided to improve their milkshake product. You know, milkshake product looks like this. It comes in multiple flavors and so on. And they said, how do we make it better? How do we improve the sales of the thing? And they went out and they spoke to their customers who were buying milkshakes, and they asked them a question, how would you make this better? How would you improve this? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? What do you want to do in order to make it better? And they collected some feedback. They got quite a lot of feedback. They implemented most of the things which customers said. And guess what? Nothing happened. Okay, so And this is what I want to stress, is that sometimes it's not enough to go out and ask customers what they want. We all heard the famous quote by Henry Ford. It's not enough to ask them what they want, but you have to study them a little bit more. You have to watch them, you have to study their behavior, you have to shadow them, or maybe you have to try it out on your own. So they got in touch with some Harvard professors, and they asked them, would you help us out here? And they came with this approach of coming into the restaurants and watching people. So they started watching people, and they found out after a few days very interesting insights. And some of those insights were that most of the people who bought a milkshake came alone, so it was individuals coming in. Most of them most of the milkshakes were sold before 9 a.m., also an interesting insight. Most of them came in by a car. They either bought it in the restaurant and drove off, or they used McDrive. And this already gave a little bit of a pattern. So it's important to watch this pattern. And then, the other week they went out and they spoke to these people as they were purchasing the milkshake and walking out. And they asked them, excuse me, why did you buy it? What kind of role is this fulfilling for you? And they got very interesting insights. Most of these people were actually commuting to work. So back then, the average commute time was about 60 minutes. And they were looking for something that they could eat, that it would have enough energy that it would sustain them until lunch, and they wouldn't die driving while eating, okay? And as they were speaking to these people, they gave them some examples, and this is where the jobs to be done theory came along. So what type of jobs do I have as a customer, and what kind of service or product am I hiring to fulfill this job? And for these people, they had some competitors, of course. So some of them were eating a banana, but they said, banana, you eat it in a minute. It's not enough. I'm driving for 1 hour. So the milkshake is better because it takes you like 20 minutes because it's frozen and you have to suck on it and so on. It takes a long time. So that's good. It's positive. Then another person said, bread and butter is fine, but when I'm driving, I have to drive with my knees. Not very safe. And a third one said, Snickers bar is a very good competitor, but I feel very guilty of eating Snickers bar before 9 a.m. Right? And this gets us into the logic that people actually want to have something for breakfast while driving, and they don't want to die while consuming that. And the milkshake fulfills that amazingly compared to all the other competitors. And this should get us thinking, okay, so what type of job does my customer have, and what product or service is he or she hiring for that particular job? So the jobs to be done theory is very important, because try to think about it also in your case, but try to think about it in two directions. One direction is, what do I know for sure that the customer wants, and what do I think that he wants? Because this is something which we see that differs quite a lot when we speak to different companies. Companies come usually with a lot of assumptions. I think that my customer wants this. I think this is what they're looking for, and this is the competition, and so on and so on. But it doesn't have to be that way. So what we will be discussing today is also some tools, how we can actually get more knowledge about what is it that our customers want, how could we extract that knowledge and turn it into something actionable that will improve our product, improve our service. And the jobs to be done theory is something very good to start with, because we'll be using the jobs to be done in the proposition canvas, which we'll move over to.
Feel free to
Great.
ask.
With the story of the McDonald's, what did they do after they gathered this information? Because they did learn the pattern of the people acquiring the milkshake, but how did they grow the sales of the milkshake? That's the sales question.
For example, they slightly improved the product, so they made the glasses like bigger and the straw thinner in order to be enough for the 1 hour drive to the big city. So that was one example. They could improve the communication and possibilities when you are buying it, because they better understood the times when there was like the biggest demand for the product. So they improved all these strategies behind the product.
Thank you very much. The straw was I was looking for.
Yes, it's important to think about it that way, because when they asked them at the beginning, they got back things like, try another flavor, try different packaging and so on. But it was nothing of substance and nothing of value. So that's why you have to look beyond what people are actually saying. That's the reason why they would never say that they want an iPhone. But once it was here, people started buying it. So it's more about what type of patterns, what type of habits people have, and what are they actually trying to achieve. Right? So that's the jobs to be done theory. If we look a little bit at the theory of this as such, it's all about hiring a product or a service to fulfill something. And you can. I did this exercise last week when I was doing a similar workshop, and we were thinking of how many situations during the day I have that I'm actually hiring a product or a service. And if you think about it for a while, there is just so many. But I rarely see companies looking at it this way. So that's something to keep in mind, and something maybe to come back to. And we'll be using it in a bit in the canvas that we'll be looking at. So, and this is the famous Henry Ford quote when he said, bring us faster horses. And then you get something totally different, but way, way, way better than what you actually had.
And this is usual answer when you ask your potential customers about what should we do different. They are not the innovators. They are the users. They can tell you more about the context of the situations where they are using current solutions. They can tell you more about the competitors or alternatives, such as Snicker bars, bananas, and so on. And you can see that you may not have like direct competitors. You may be the first one on the market, but there are alternatives which can do the job better than you, because it's reacting to the actual situation and the context of the users, of the customers.
There are also two more things I would like to say about this. In research design theory, it's usually said that problems which are worth solving are the ones where people are actively willing to pay for a different solution, or it's a situation where it makes them super angry, and also a situation where they are willing to go out of their typical way of doing things. And those are usually the problems which are worth solving, because they either want to achieve that by paying more money or doing something completely differently. So that's something to keep in mind. And then secondly, with these jobs to be done, think for a second, what is a stronger question? If you ask people, how would you make this better? Or tell me about the last experience you had to use this. And this is exactly the type of thinking that you want to get into when extracting these interesting insights. So you don't want to ask the super direct question of, please make it in pink or whatever, make it bigger. It's not good enough.
You want to get them to storytelling, because usually we as humans, the psychology works like that you share your experience if it's like super, super good and awesome. You want to share something which excites you and was memorable, or you share stuff and situations when you are pissed off that something didn't work like this. I was at that restaurant and they didn't do this, I expected this, and so on. And when you get your customers to these situations, that's where the magic happens, where you get the insights which can help you design better solution or improve the stuff you already have.
For those who are developing something technical, you can also think about it in this way, that you are developing and your customers are buying stuff on the left side, but what is it that they're actually trying to achieve with your solution? Okay, so yes, they are buying the liquid, the milkshake liquid, the cup and the straw and everything, but they're actually trying to achieve to get some energy into themselves while they spend time driving to work. Okay, so also a different perspective, but something to keep in mind. And now we get into the more complicated stuff. So we have the initial theory, so we know that we have to think about our clients in a way of what type of products and services are they hiring for their jobs. Now let's maybe expand on it a little bit and let's look at how we could actually put it into a value proposition canvas. Okay, so what is good about today is that on the internet you can always find a canvas which you can work on and which you can implement. And this is good because you don't have to come up with a theory every time you're trying to do your value proposition research or whatever. So it's always good to take what is already available and then maybe customize it more towards your needs.
It's good to start with the definition of the value proposition. It's something which it may be innovation, it may be service, it may be a feature of your company, which makes you attractive in the eyes of customers. So it's the one significant characteristics which helps you attract them and solve their problem better as the competitors or as the solutions which are on the market yet. And as you said, we have solutions and canvases and structures you can use. They are really easy because they are visualizing like complex ideas. It's not easy to implement them because it's not the one-time job. You should iterate, validate, and do it like in various rounds until you reach the status of having this value proposition which fits the market need. So we will discuss more about the canvas you can see on the slide and also in here.
Yes, I made it super big so we can actually see it. Again, with these canvases and with these methodologies, it's always important to say that you might find variations of these online. One variation we actually produced not so long ago, where we switched it around because it gave us a little bit more logic. But you know, with value canvases, with business model canvases, you have various different types. But it doesn't really matter which you use because most of them ask the same questions. And what I always say. Unfortunately, you have to do it again and again in an iterative way because it's not enough to do it only once. Some companies, when I speak to them, they're like, "Oh, so you know, let's get over with this. Let's finish it quickly," and it's done. It's never done. It always continues because with every new feature, every new addition, you unfortunately have to come back to it again. So what do we have here? So we have two sides. We should start on the right side, although it would be logical to start on the left side. That's why Adam produced the version 2.0 where it's switched around. But let's start on the right side. And this brings us right to what we were defining just a second ago. Okay, so what are the customer jobs? And let us illustrate it on the example of the milkshake. Okay, so the person is trying to drive to work, do something to get some energy, and do it in a way which will not result in a car accident. Okay, so what are their pains and their gains with the current solution? Well, the current solution, the pains are, I might kill myself if I eat some bread while driving and driving with my knees. Not good, that's a pain. I can have something which I eat super quickly, so it's not going to give me enough energy, and I'll have then another 59 minutes of just driving and not doing anything. And then I have the Snickers bar, but I'm feeling super guilty when I eat it too early. Okay, so that goes in the pains category. What am I expecting from the product? So what are my gains? What I would be happy to have? And those are something that will keep me busy for more than 1 or 2 minutes. So I'm looking for something which I can consume for 30 minutes, maybe more. Something which is easy to drink while I'm driving, and something that gives me enough energy. And and if we would now translate it onto the left side on the value proposition part of it, then the McDonald's milkshake fits perfectly. So it relieves all the pains which are there, so it won't kill you, it takes long enough, there is enough energy. Okay, so it's kind of matching. So the pain relievers are matching the pains. And then on the top, the gains are also matched to the gain creators. Because if we look at the improved version of the McDonald's milkshake, it's a bigger package, narrower straw, blah, 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 and so on, and it all fits together. Okay, this is a very simplistic example, and this is not the case of every software as a service business and so on and so on. But it gives you the general idea that you somehow have to keep on matching the pains that the customer has with the current solutions and his wishes with what you have and what you offer, and then naming it in a certain way. In this case, the product or service would be the enhanced McDonald's milkshake.
We wanted to be practical, so again, we will do a circle of sharing of your experience, and we have various questions which is good to have answered during the process of figuring out what your value proposition is. So we may...
Not yet.
I'm really curious about your point of view.
But I heard an email coming, so maybe we're getting some McDonald's discount because we kept on talking about McDonald's so much. No, but just to summarize it again, quickly, before we move on to Adam's favorite part. So those are questions. So first we have to define the customer job. Okay, so what is the customer trying to achieve? what are the pains that the customer experiences with the current solutions? And now think about your competitors. Maybe there are no direct competitors who are producing the same thing as you are. There are indirect competitors, because if people are, there is always a way how to achieve something. It might not be straightforward, it might be complicated, expensive, it might make you angry, and so on and so on, but there is always a way. So whenever we speak to startups and we ask them about competition and they say, there is no competition, I say, maybe you just haven't researched your market good enough. Okay, so always think about that. Then based on research, you can also sum up the gains. So what is the customer expecting? What does the customer want to have? What is not fulfilled today? And then you have to translate that, matching it to the other side. So what is your product or service that is actually achieving this? So what's the name of it? What are the pain relievers? So how I am matching how am I solving the pains that the customer has with the current solution, and how am I also matching the gains? So the expectations that the customer wants. What is very important, and as I said, and Adam said it also at the beginning, it's an iterative process. Okay, so every time you are adding a new feature, it's worth going back to customers and speaking to them again and understanding whether their context hasn't changed. Maybe context in a different country is totally different. Okay, so you are never sure that the proposition which you defined and the value proposition canvas which you have, it might be old in the upcoming weeks or months, or in a totally different geography or a totally different target group. Because if you all of a sudden thought of not only selling the milkshakes to people who are driving to work, but you wanted to start selling them to children, it's a totally different target group. You have to understand it again, and you would probably produce a totally different canvas for that. So something to keep in mind. You can download it online. No need to take pictures. It's everywhere. Easy to find. And now the favorite part.
What is the job your customer wants to get done? Who will start? Who will tell us? What do you think? Or what do you know? Who is gonna be the first one? Feel free. Don't be afraid. It's about sharing your knowledge and expertise. So
it's 6 they have to answer?
Yes.
6 times and then we go.
Yeah. So
it should be like our customers or in general?
Your particular customers. You have your product, service. We want to see how good are you in understanding your customers. So tell us about your customer.
Our customer wants complex information about the traffic in some area, let's say.
Okay.
And Jesse was second. I saw his hand up.
Sure, yeah, jobs to be done. So our customers they need to host social gatherings and receive packages and let in service personnel. Or a smart lock, obviously.
Perfect. Anybody else? Here you are.
So I think that our customers want to, or don't want to pay for services of robots. So our solution is to provide them the filtration device that can help them to avoid this problem. So they will save money and they will be green.
So don't want to pay for robot services. Okay, we have 3, so 3 more to go. Istvan?
Well, our customers would like to time by time clean their solar farms, their industrial size solar farms, to maximize electricity production, and they would like to do this by using the least possible water, but still they would like to have their solar panels clean to produce a lot of electricity.
So to clean solar farms, 2 more to go. Adam?
Not so much. Maybe someone else.
You can go.
Well, I think our customers want to have an easier way to launch products on blockchains.
Okay. So easier way to launch products. Last but not least, in order to move further
We
to
can
another
ask Hub Hub.
question.
Okay, this one is working. So one of our clients, he basically doesn't want famous people to promote their products. Instead of it, they want regular people to promote their product and be visible with it.
Regular people to promote products. Okay, perfect. So we have some understanding of the context of the situations where your customers are right now. Let's go further. What do you think is annoying or troubling your customers in these situations? What are the pains? What makes their life really hard and annoying? What do you think?
In our case, it's no data.
Okay, so they don't have anything. They cannot do any
Or
informed.
all data.
Okay, okay, do not have data. Others? Feel free. We are here to share, so there are no right or wrong answers. You have
Okay,
mic.
so in our particular case, the pain point was that they, with regular people, can do just competitions and nothing else. So very limited options.
Okay, limited options. Someone from the online. Jesse, what are the pains of your customers?
Yeah, so the jobs that they have to do currently cause pains because a lot of time restrictions, like people are stuck waiting at home for a package for this or that, and so a lot of it comes down to time restrictions.
Okay, time restrictions, perfect. Claudia, for example, how do you see that? What are the pains of your customers at Sungert?
I believe that the pain is that majority of plant-based yogurt are not as nutritious as traditional yogurt.
Okay, so some nutrition characteristics.
I heard the I think in this sentence. It's a good starting point for research.
Okay. Ursula, what do you think are the pains of your customers?
I think that they don't have time and energy to prepare a healthy meal, so they need a nutrition snack that contains a lot of protein.
Cool. And one more. Who's gonna tell us one more pain of your customers? Maybe István?
Yes, thank you. Actually, there can be three in our case, three main pains, major pains. One is, of course, not enough electricity produced, as there is not enough return on investment for the owner of the solar farm. The second can be too much water used, again, making it too costly. And a third possible pain is that there are no people to do the job. So there are not always people to actually do the job of cleaning the solar farms.
Okay, perfect.
Actually, this is important. That the more pains you have, the better, and the stronger the pains are. The stronger opportunity you have to make people's lives easier. let's move on.
Let's move on. And we'll close the circle with the last question. What is keeping your customers awake at night? It's connected still to the pains, but what do you think is, let's go deeper to these pains. Like what you really think or know is the biggest pain point?
Our customers are not sleeping right because when they don't have any data, their decisions are maybe based purely on their own things that they thought that it can be, but actually the problem can be elsewhere.
Okay, so perfect.
And this is something you can connect to gains, because the pain is that currently they don't have the data, but their wish is to actually have it and to have something which they can base their decision upon. So, it's something that kind of goes into both of those.
Any other point of views? Jesse, what's keeping your customers awake at night?
For us, if you're an Airbnb host, it's actually an easy answer because your guest lost their keys and they called you in the middle of the night to get new keys.
Perfect context and the situation.
And it's keeping them awake at night because they're waiting for the phone call.
Literally.
They're either waiting for the phone call or they're receiving the phone call and being woken up at night.
Okay. Adam, what's keeping your customers awake?
Well, I would say that it's a lack of tools which they can use for speeding up the development of the product, or yeah.
Okay, so they want to be quicker on the market. Perfect. These were like 3 examples of questions you can use in order to better understand what to fill into these spaces in the canvas. We have maybe 2 or 3 more just to illustrate what questions you may ask yourself, the customers, and the team. What would make their job to be done easier? So some facilitators or characteristics which can really improve the experience to do it like faster, as you said, or make it accessible. Then you can ask about how is your solution better than the competition, and what really is the competition? Because if you are starting to prepare your go-to-market strategy, it's really important to understand who is the direct and indirect competitor in order to better set up the communication channels, to better set up your marketing strategy, to decide how much budget do you need in order to outcompete these companies who are competing for the attention and the budget of your customers.
Because when we were discussing the McDonald's milkshake idea, I mean, if I was to compare or say what is the competition of a milkshake, I would start thinking about, what does Starbucks have, what does whomever KFC has, but who would have thought it's going to be a banana? I mean, not even the banana would think that it's a competition of a milkshake. So that's something to keep in mind. And there is always some alternative, and people are always fulfilling their jobs in some way. The question is, how are you going to make it easier and better for them? Okay, and this is the last part is also important to keep in mind. How will you make it easy for them so they adopt your solution? McDonald's is making it very easy because it's open almost all the time. You can drive in there, you can walk in there, you can do whatever you want. So this is something to keep in mind. So how do you make it easier and accessible for these people, and how will they also be then able to spread the message and allow others to try it out? So
it's good to do this exercise in your team, to spend a few hours on that and discuss in order to clarify some things. We just try to illustrate how it may work. We focus on the right side, so the customer profile. The next job of yours should be to pair it with your current offerings of the products or services, the features which are the pain relievers, because if your customer has pain, it's the opportunity space where you start. And then to focus on the gain creators, the features which are the benefits, why the customer should use your particular product.
What I also always advise companies to do when they fill this part in, and they're usually pretty quick to fill it in, but every time you're not sure and you want to start the sentence with "I think," it's good to put a question mark there or to put it in a different color, because this is something that you would like to find out for sure. right? Because if you keep on developing your solution in a way that I think this is right, this is wrong, this is their problem, and this is the situation that they're in, only the release moment will tell if customers are willing to pay for it. Whereas if you approach it from a different angle and you try to study these customers, and you know for sure, like these professors who were there at McDonald's, they knew for sure that it's actually people coming in the morning and telling them all these things, then it's easier, and your so the certainty level or your confidence level can be higher because you already validated certain things. So it's good to be true to yourself. And every time you are not sure, mark it there, because we'll be discussing in a minute the tools which you can use in order to get better understanding of customers, and that's something that you can definitely include in the research script. It's going to make your life easier. So, whenever we want to identify what is it that our customers really want, we need to have some kind of methodology. Logically, this we will go through in a bit. We need to have some customers that we want to speak to, but they don't have to be our current customers. They can be customers of competition. They can be whomever who fits into the target audience. That's a little bit more difficult to find than the methodology. And the hardest thing is to have some courage, because the first thing that we see in people's faces when we tell them go out and speak to 15 people, they're like, they're not so much in the mood speaking to random people.
The product is not perfect to speak to them.
Exactly.
It's only 70%.
So we have to work on it for another 1.5 years before we can get customer feedback. So it's important to find some courage and find some random people whom you don't know, and kindly ask them to sit down with you for 1 hour so you can ask them all these picky questions and ask them about their situations and environments. Otherwise, you will not get the data. Okay? So, moving ahead, so we go into the methodology part. The courage part we will not be able to help you with, but the methodology, this is something we can tell you about. So, the double diamond.
The double diamond is a scheme which illustrates the basic principles or 4 stages of the design thinking methodology. It started back in 1944 after or close to the end of the Second World War, where England was looking forward to kickstart the economy. So Hugh Dalton came with this methodology to improve the speed of innovation, improve the capabilities of the nation in order to find meaningful solutions. And it really helped a lot of companies to outperform their competitors and really focus on the right priorities, focus the limited time, effort, and money in order to fulfill the needs and expectations of their customers. And it's illustrated by the double diamond scheme, which I believe that we have it on the next slide. It has 4 stages. You can see that we have these divergent and convergent phases. We start with the discovery phase, which is dedicated to some research and empathy. In order to better understand the context of your customers, you need to go outside, have the courage, ask them questions, better understand their particular situations where they are in. To do some research, which you can do like secondary from your office and Google the competition, Google current solutions, maybe look for some studies which can give you insights into the theme and the topic. I believe you are aware of that. And then it's about the empathy, that you pick particular customers and representatives from these customer segments you are trying to serve, and go to invite them for the coffee or go to talk to them and spend 1 hour discussing key questions which are relevant to you in order to better understand their situation. So in the first phase, we try to spread our point of view, go out of our comfort zone and gain as much insight as possible. When we go to the second phase, which is about the definition, we should have plenty of insights which can give us an overview about some trends in their behavior, maybe some crucial pain points and challenges they are facing. You may have a lot of information about the particular situations where they are struggling. You may have information about the competitors, about their own hacks, how they try to solve it themselves, and many more other insights. And that's the time when you should sit down, analyze that information, and define what is the priority which you can focus on, and what is the main problem they have in order to develop a particular solution. When we are in the third phase, what is it about?
In the third phase, it's again divergent. So in the third phase, you want to do as much brainstorming as possible based on the insights which you gained from the define phase. So you took out those insights, those interesting things, as we mentioned with the McDonald's example, and then you try to come up with solutions. And you never come up with one solution; you come up with multiple solutions. So then you can go into the validation phase again, convergent, where you take a systematic approach to testing them, seeing which one works better, what are people more responsive to, what they are less responsive to. It might seem complicated. The fastest you can actually complete this whole double diamond process is in how many hours do we do it in Google Design Thinking workshops?
Altogether? In 4 or 5?
In 4 or 5 hours. When you do it like super quickly, you can go in 4 or 5 hours. Of course, you will not have relevant people that you've spoken to, and you haven't had enough time to do your ideation. But it's an illustration of the fact that it's doable quickly. If you're looking at it, then you're like, maybe it's going to take me multiple months. Doesn't have to. When you give yourself time constraints, and this is what we see every time we do Google Design Thinking workshops, when you give yourself constraints, you're able to achieve things faster. And what is also important, are there any industrial designers here?
Or there?
Industrial designers? Who? No industrial designers. When they actually made this double diamond principle in 1944, they were looking actually at giving them a way how to design products better. Okay, we haven't had the internet as far as I know back then, so it has been only recently, maybe 10 years or 15 years ago, where we actually started using this process for designing services. And this is not only used in development, but it's also used in improving customer experience and things like this. So it's a nice customer-centric way. And when we do workshops at the Slovak Institute of Design at Slovak Technical University, the students which are doing things like this, they take a very similar approach. So first they do their research, they do their shadowing, and they watch people how they interact with the chair or whatever they aim to improve. And this is a very similar process that they take. So that's why, from our experience, it's good to apply the design thinking process. And again, as you see on top and the bottom, it's important to do it in an iterative way. So usually it's not enough that you go through the process once. You want to do some research, you want to take some interesting things, turn it into a prototype, validate it. Validate it or totally trash it. And then you do it again. So you gather some more insights, and again you go through the process, and you do it in certain sprints, and it takes you further along the way. So if we would summarize those 4 stages in a little bit more detail once again, so you get a better understanding. The discovery phase, we have a question. Hidden.
How many customers have you spoken to yet? Let's start with 0. Raise your hand if you didn't speak to customers yet. No one? Perfect.
We can go home.
Who's gonna like put higher bid to 1, 5, 10? Tell us.
Maybe 5 to 10, I would say.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What about you? 2. Okay. Online startups. How many customers have you spoken to?
Hi guys.
Hey.
Sorry, I just joined. So
welcome.
Istvan?
No, I was listening actually. Like I just got to the desk. Actually, we spoke with personally like 300 people.
Perfect.
And, digitally, like maybe 3,000. So yeah.
Okay.
But with the surveys, so that's also one way just to get feedback. And when we are targeting like really the massive B2C segment, so yeah.
So you have the courage to ask them. Perfect. Istvan, how many customers did you spoke to?
Well, first of all, we receive quite often quotation requests from solar farm owners all over the world. They ask us to, hello, please give us a quotation for solar farm, cleaning solar farms. I have, I don't know, 2 hectares of solar farms in Australia, which is very nice, but our product is just a prototype yet, so we cannot go and clean their solar farms at the moment. And actually also from Hungarian solar farm owners and also from companies who do the maintenance of solar farms and the installation of solar farms, they said that this product would be cool if it would be ready.
It's great when you are in the situation when they reach out to you because they know about you already and they want to speak to you. So you don't have to be initiative and find potential customers.
But you know, sometimes it happens. Sometimes we have to rush out to them.
Yeah.
Depends on.
Perfect.
There are 2 things I would like to say at this point, but I will come back to them later once we go through the whole thing. But it's something which I see quite often: the survey versus interview question and the product not ready question. So I'm going to come back to it once we get into the phase of discovery. Discover phase is, I would say, and I think Adam would agree with me, it's the most important of the whole process, because it kind of determines what type of insights you are going to work with throughout the whole session, okay, throughout the whole process. So it's important that you actually map out well people whom you want to speak to. You map out what is it that you want to find out, and you map out nicely, whom you want to speak to. So we usually, at the beginning of this discovery phase, we ask ourselves 3 questions. If we're gonna, let's say we're gonna research what are we gonna research?
Mobility industry.
Mobility. Let's say we're gonna, let's be a little bit more concrete. Let's say we're gonna improve a way of selling second-hand cars. There's quite a lot of problems there, we will all agree. So first we ask ourselves a question: what is it that we know about this topic? And we do 1 or 2 hour session, and we put down all the data, everything that we currently know about that particular topic or problem or whatever. Then we ask ourselves another question: what is it that we want to find out? So what are our blind spots? What are the things that we don't know yet and we would like to know more about? And thirdly, we ask ourselves a question: whom do we want to speak to? Do we want to speak to a person who is buying their used car for the first time? Do we want to speak to a person who has bought it 20 times? Do we want to speak to car mechanics? Do we want to speak to some authority? Do we want to speak to a car thief or whomever, okay? But we list all of these things, and only then we start our discovery process. Only then we list I wouldn't call it a questionnaire, I would call it an interview script, because at first with discover phase we never do surveys, and that's the reason why I put it here. At the beginning, it's best to extract insights using deep interviews. So it's something which takes 45 minutes, maybe it takes 1 hour, and you go with the person through a script, and the person tells you stories, experiences, and you ask them all these nice why questions, and you never give them suggestions. And only then, once you extract those insights, you can validate those insights using surveys or using quantitative ways of validation. So that's important at the beginning.
The question of who are we going to ask is really important and extremely important out of all those you heard today. Because usually when we ask people who are your customers, the answer is everybody. No matter if you are B2C company or B2B company, everyone is your customer. So you're going to be like a billionaire if you manage to get to the market and sell them the solutions. It's important to think about this like really properly and in detail. Because as you see this product adoption curve, you can see that not everyone will buy your solution if you are the first on the market. You will have these innovators, 2.5% of the population, who will stand the line 6 hours or half a day when the new iPhone is launched. You will have these people who are like geeks and want to drive Teslas because they are really like passionate about e-mobility. And these are the people who can give you like the first feedback about your solution. They're really enthusiastic, but give you like crucial feedback about if the solution works, if it's really interesting, if it gave them the added value they expected. And then there is really important part of the segmentation, and it's early adopters, because that's the crucial segment which can give you the money, pay for the solution, pay for the service product, and give you the funding, basically, which can get you with your marketing strategy and sales to the early majority, where the magic happens and you gain your market share. So this is the first step or example how you may look at the customers and how you should specify who are these customer segments you want to talk to.
I saw an interesting graph this morning from an economist, and he said that the adoption rate of cryptocurrencies today is as high as internet was in the 2000s, at the beginning of 2000s. So, we're somewhere
on the left side, right?
Somewhere on the early adopter side. Quite interesting. One more thing I would like to say when you're doing this research. The reason why I was telling you, are we going to speak to someone who is buying their used car for the first time or someone who's done it 15 times? This is exactly the reason. You want to look for extreme users. Who could be your extreme users? They don't have to be extremists. They have to be extreme users. So someone who either has way more interactions than the average majority, or someone who is experiencing something for the first time, because those people are way more receptive to. So the extreme on the left side, so those who have done it multiple times, they tend to notice small little differences and details. And the best example for this is frequent flyers. So let's say you're improving an experience for airline. You want to speak to those frequent flyers, because if they fly different airlines, they will see those tiny little differences which the majority will not notice. Or then you want to take a person who flies for the first time, because everything is new for them, and they have, they're not used to what is it like. So that's why they will comment everything, and you can extract interesting insights.
These extreme customers or users will give you meaningful insights which can help the majority. The majority don't have to realize the problems and some pitfalls, but they can give you something which improves the lives of the majority. And we have a story of, I think the guy was called Windsurf, and his wife was disabled. She was deaf, and they were not able to communicate together when he was at work. So he figured out the email protocol, and thanks to this gentleman, we all are using emails today for work on a daily basis. And it started with the extreme user. He wanted to solve his problem with his wife who was disabled, and suddenly it grew, and the majority has really easier lives. So, and it's necessary to use the protocol right now.
Yes. What might happen quite often, but this is mostly valid for corporates, unfortunately. When we start telling them that, okay, now it's time to define whom you want to speak to, define your script, and so on. Let's go out into the field. Let's get some insights. You can get pushback in these three forms. As a user, I wouldn't do that. So people sitting at their desks saying, my user wouldn't do it because they think. Our users are not going to worry about that. So you will always have some roadblocks on the way in gathering user insights. As I said, mostly applicable to big companies. I don't know if this happens also in small teams. When everyone is motivated to do this, then it's probably not a problem. But we usually see this with management, that a team wants to get their research project going, and they get these roadblocks. So it's important to keep it in mind. You can get some pushback. People are not used to going out and having the courage to speak to random people and recruit them on LinkedIn or recruit them through a digital campaign or whatever. It's not how it's been done. So that's the problem. So let's imagine we now went out and spoke to 25 people who either bought or sold used cars. Some of them were extreme users. We have a bunch of data we collected through deep interviews. So we were writing a lot of notes. We made some recordings. We went out and bought a used car. We sold a used car. So we have some experiences. We did some shadowing. We collected some secondary data. What do we do with it now? And this is where we get into the define phase. So we start looking at patterns. Are these people whom we spoke to, is there something that they have in common? Is there something which they were repeating that was a problem? Is there something which was being repeated as a possible opportunity? Okay, so we try to pick out those interesting pieces of data that would somehow define for us the design brief. So what is it that we're going to solve? So let's imagine that we spoke to these people and we saw that there is a huge problem of actually, I don't know, bringing a vehicle from abroad and being sure that everything is as it should be. Then we can define a design brief for the next phase, saying, how could we make the experience of bringing a car from abroad safer? And that already points our attention to, okay, we're solving this particular problem, and this particular problem is validated because we spoke to a number of people. And that brings us with the design brief, it brings us to the develop phase. So that's the part where we are trying to run multiple brainstorming sessions. We're trying to come up with many solutions, preferably different ones. We don't want to end up with one big solution which entails everything, because that's something you will be never able to prototype. So we want to, go proposition by proposition. And once we have those, we have multiple, we go into the testing phase. We go into the phase where we are trying to get some real feedback, and, it can be difficult to imagine this, but, you do it with landing pages, you do it with digital campaigns, you do it with Wizard of Oz MVPs. So those MVPs where everything looks like it's real, but it's actually you doing it in the background manually. And that gives us some learning and maybe points us in a direction of what we would need to study a little bit more.
So how to get to the exploration phase and get the insights about the problem, about the market? Talk to potential customers. It's a lot of people are, as Slavo said, afraid of that. But if you start with few interviews, you get better. It's really important to prepare the script and ask the right questions. And when you take the step outside of your comfort zone, you really see like the magic phase when you get the insights that you never ever imagined to get from the customers. We recommend you to spend 45 minutes or 1 hour with the customer and prepare a lot of questions, go deeper, usually to ask a lot of whys, because there is one method which is called 5 whys, and it's about being like a 3-year-old child who is still asking, and why is it so, and why is it so, and why is it like this? And then you can really go to the roots of the problem or roots of the aspects of the situation, how your customers react to certain particular situations. Then when you have this qualitative data, which you may get from, for example, if you do this customer segmentation, let's say that you have 3 kind of customers. Usually it's enough to have 4 to 5 interviews with that kind of customers, because the theory and some studies about this have been made that when you have 4 interviews, you can see that some stuff and insights are really like starting to repeat. And the studies discovered that when you have 4 interviews, you gain 94% of the insights about the problem, about the topic. When you talk with another customer, or he or she will give you like another 3%, so 97% of the information about the topic. So the others will give you like a friction of new information.
Our best practice when we do these big research projects at Kiuub is usually we do about 5 interviews per persona. So we take a persona, we speak to 5, and you already see after the 3rd one that if there is a problem, you will have probably found it by the time you're speaking to the 3rd one, and then you're only enriching the data a little bit. So that's when you are exploring the problem.
And when you have these qualitative insights, it's good to have some quantitative validation, either in a way of surveys, as one of our colleagues said, or you can design a prototype and the solution and let it to the market. It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be done because, ideas are easy. Execution is what matters. So it's really important to run some test ads, create some landing pages, create some visuals, prototypes, and put it outside, put it to the market, and see what will really happen.
Exactly. So exploring the problem and the market, then, if you go further and you're exploring the solution, then, more potential directions open up for you. A/B testing is usually something which happens, but this we usually use for particular features and see how people react to it. Also, you can use it to compare proposition if you have a landing page. MVP and betas, if you are that far, then of course, you can always make a closed beta and ask people to work with you. We also, if you're a product or a service, what we also did quite often is we made these fake sales that you let the customer go through the whole checkout process, and then at the end, you give them an Amazon voucher, or you tell them that it's not ready yet. Sorry about that. Here is something. But if you are willing to share some more insights, then feel free to leave your contact, and we'll get in touch with you. Third part, of course, you want to collect as much data as possible, because that's the only thing that's going to move you forward. And I think we stressed that quite a lot today, that when you're doing qualitative research, you get a bunch of data. Then you validate it with quantitative data. And then when you're testing, you're again collecting data, because that will show you the spots where you should focus on later on in the research. A cheat sheet for validations. I call it a cheat sheet because it tells you all the different ways of. This is something you can take a picture of. This took me quite a long time to find on the internet, this cheat sheet. But at the bottom you select where you are currently. If you're just validating the problem, so you're somewhere at the beginning, or you're validating the value proposition or the solution, or you're already in the product market fit phase. And something which is super simple on the bottom left, all the way to something which is a little bit more complicated, a little bit more complex. But this is something I show to startups which are somewhere at the beginning or somewhere in the green phase. There are multiple ways, and then you choose whichever one you like, and then you Google it, and it gives you a nice manual on how to do it.
So you start with the problem validation. So you need to be sure if the problem is big enough on the market, if the customers see that as in your way, and then you will do this exercise as we showed in the beginning, that you will define your value proposition, and you will go ask these customers about the particular situations. And then, if you have it, you go to prototype it, to visualize the solution, to design it, to do something which is tangible, or you can show it to customers. We have a question.
Just to quickly ask, what's the 5-second test?
I don't know. My favorite one is Wizard of Oz.
But I would assume, because there are a lot of methodologies and practical stuff, that if you're able to explain it really quickly, and if your customer understand it really quickly, because a lot of times, even when we started with our innovation studio Kiuub, we were not able to explain what we are doing in 5 seconds, and our customers were absolutely not able to understand it in 5 seconds. So it's about the simplification of your product and the proposition.
What is your 5-second speech now?
We will tell you after that, because we have only 15 minutes and so many slides, so we are still figuring it out.
Okay, so just to recap, it goes in circles, but it's a process. So we start with the research and empathy part. What the awareness means at the beginning, in some of the design thinking double diamonds, you will see that it's an intention. So it's an intention for me to explore some product field. So I'm aware of that product field. So I go into research and empathy, I specify whom I want to speak to, what is it that I don't know. I go out, collect data, validate data quantitatively. Then I start digging through that data to define what is it that I'm actually going to improve. So what is my design brief in the middle? And I go into ideation and prototyping and validation to test this. And then I continue into circle. Some of you have probably read the book Lean Startup. It's showing it a little bit differently. Lean Startup actually looks at the right part only. So make a prototype quickly, validate it, get some insights, and do it again. Whereas design thinking tells you, why not spend some time with the customer at the beginning? Because if you already speak to 20, 30 people at the beginning, you can always then reach out to them back and say, look, here we have a prototype, have a look at it. Okay, so we tend to prefer this way. So the whole process, if I would have to summarize it, is we want to understand our customers first. We want to look for those interesting insights, and then we want to build and de-risk. Because if we are right at the beginning, our risk is super high and the fidelity of our solution is probably very low, okay? And as we are getting more knowledge, the fidelity increases because the customers are telling us what is that we want to improve, and our risk level decreases. So if I would have to, if I was showing this to investors, I would say that this is a de-risking tool. So how do I decrease the risk of a startup failing over a long term? That's pretty much what design thinking is. And I have a small example. If we, if I look back at in 2017, I was the co-founder of Škoda Auto Digilab. It's a lab which focuses on mobility services. So we were developing, so first we were studying customers and we were developing various mobility solutions, you know, car sharings, ride sharings, multimodal transportation, sharings of scooters, and you can try a bunch of those things in Prague if you are there. And I was head of the unit which was responsible for doing these researches and running prototypes. And this was one of the prototypes which we did, and it was actually a pretty much Wizard of Oz MVP. So we found an insight that there is a certain group of people who have mobility needs but are not able to fulfill them by themselves. And that group we called the group of vulnerables, which were older people, mostly living alone at home, or living in elderly homes. And those were kids younger than 15 who regularly went to school, their parents were employed, and you know they could take a taxi, but taxi wasn't a good solution because taxi was a curb to curb or sidewalk to sidewalk type of transportation, whereas these people needed something which was not even door to door, but maybe something a little bit more, okay? So it's not only a driver, but it's also someone who takes care of you for a while. And this was a project which we launched in Munich after we did a little bit of this research. We had a bunch of hypotheses of how it's gonna work, and we were running it for a few months, but every month we changed the proposition a little bit. Because at first we thought that it's going to be only people who are living alone at home, older people, using this. Wasn't true. But we tried it with 4 cars. We made the service look like it was complete. We had a nice app, but then everything on the background was happening manually. Because the problem with developing something end-to-end at the beginning is that it takes time and it's expensive, and it can change in the future, and it's difficult to change it. So that's why we just make it look nice, but we do everything manually. And then once we are sure that the process is right, only then we develop it and make it automatic. Although it looked like Uber, that everything is pairing and so on, there were people clicking and calling people.
And actually, this is sometimes the problem, that a lot of like early stage startups or idea stage startups are looking at the startups such as Airbnb or Uber where they are now. But no one really knows how Uber looked like when they started back a few years ago. What was their visuals? How did the app look? Maybe they didn't have an app, I don't know. But that's the problem, that it was not perfect. They were looking for the innovators to give them feedback. It worked for them. Then they go to the early adopters, and then they help them to get to the majority.
Yes, and actually after, I don't know how many, 10 iterations or so, it took us some time. Only then we found people who were actually so valuable customers who used us for a longer term. And we also found a way how to hire drivers but in a better way, how to make collaborations with elderly homes, because we found out that our customers are there. So our propositions, our hypotheses at the beginning were, as it usually is, totally wrong. Okay, so it's an example of how you can go in an iterative way, and although this was developed in a corporation, it was nowhere perfect from the beginning. We just had 4 cars, we had, I don't know, 6 drivers, and a bunch of people doing everything manually on the background. So it actually took us multiple months until we found some model which had a possibility of growing in that city, and then it was scaled to, I don't know, 40 cars or something later on. So. Also big companies can do it this way. So what did we talk about, Adam, today?
Let's summarize it. We have these 2 visuals.
Visual 1.
The first one is the value proposition canvas, which we recommend to you to do it as a homework with your team. Look at your customer profile and the context of the jobs they are trying to do, trying to accomplish. Try to look for pains, because that's the magic place where the opportunities lie. Then for some gains which could have made their lives better and easier. And then on the other hand, you can create the value proposition of your product and service. What is your offering? How can you relieve their pains? And how can you create or generate some gains for the customer segments you are trying to target?
Can be applied for features as well, not only complete company thing. And then a second thing which we spoke about is the tool. So if we're unsure about the pains and gains and what the customer is actually trying to achieve, then we need something which will help us find it. And this is the design thinking double diamond approach, where we specify what is it that we don't know, and we identify people we want to speak to, and we go through the whole process of analyzing that, and secondly moving into prototyping phase where we try to get some feedback. So that's it.
That's pretty much it. We have 10 minutes left, and I believe that you have some questions. So let's discuss either your value propositions or anything else which may interest you.
Or share with us how you spoke to customers.
Exactly. So let's use this 10 minutes which we have left.
Well, but let's not use it in silence.
Yeah. But we can work with that. You have the mic.
Oh, maybe I will just say our experience, because our customer actually asked us to create such solution. So it was a little bit different. So we are now trying to do all this circle and innovation with the defining and also talking to other customers. But it was a little bit different. So we had maybe some information to start with. And we are now want to improve the product, so we will need to do all this that we discussed today. So that's not a real question, but that's our experience.
But that's good news, no? If somebody comes to you and say this is what we want, the only challenge with this is, are you then able to replicate it and scale it to others? Exactly. Are they the same or are they different?
Yeah, if this is just a question, if we are just lucky to find some person that actually can benefit from
Well,
it.
you're lucky if the customer is big enough and you don't need another one.
Well, no, we need more time.
What do you find most challenging during this process?
Well, we have a product that is not really B2B, but maybe B2G government, so this is different or more difficult to talk to that people that are some decision makers or can give us the real insight, because we cannot do it with just some simple survey, because they are already overloaded with their tasks. So this is something we are now thinking about how to approach it, how to get to that people.
That's cool.
That's always a challenge, no?
Definitely.
But what works best for us is that when we kindly ask them whether they would spend those 45 minutes or 1 hour with us, that we're trying to understand the topic space more. We're not trying to sell them everything, because sometimes people are afraid that you get them to a meeting and then you start selling them whatever.
And how you can persuade them to spend that 45 minutes with you if they are super busy?
There's always a challenge.
It's a challenge. You can pay them.
Invite them for lunch.
Yeah, you can try to somehow take them from their typical work environment. So I could imagine that you could invite them to an event in their topic, and there you dedicate the time and you take them aside and you ask them. Okay, but you have to be creative. It's similar to all the growth hacking techniques. It has to be. When we were researching quite a lot of things. When I was younger, when I was still at university and we wanted to launch a startup, the way that we researched the topics was that we reached out to existing companies in a way that we were writing a bachelor thesis and we want to get some information. And we did a kind of customer or an expert interview. We could afford it back then because we were students, but it was all about creating something, creative of how to approach these people if they are difficult to reach. Whereas if you're researching B2C market, it's usually easier to get consumers because for that you can also use various agencies who have, those agencies which are doing polls for political parties and so on. You can use those theoretically.
So basically, you can hire an intern who is in the bachelor year.
They already have some suggestions.
We were thinking like that, direct emailing or calling and try to persuade them. Then we were as you said, and maybe even through some other partners that have already those governments or municipalities as a client.
Or look
Maybe
for someone who knows people there.
Exactly.
Who could pass on the message, because cold emailing, difficult. Easier to do through LinkedIn also, but it's also not very successful. The best thing is if you find someone in your network who knows someone who knows that person and they pass on the message, it's stronger.
And maybe you can like select the strategy that you are here in the Future Now Bootcamp, and it's the 10th year or anniversary, so there are a lot of alumni who are also in the segment of B2G, so you can get connected, ask them if they can recommend someone to you. When we do this, we also have a logistics strategy, and it's similar than a sales funnel that you need to look for the contacts and the ways where you can find these people. But it's in the end, it's easier because you are not selling anything. You just want their time, and it's easy to reward that. So.
Yeah, but usually I wouldn't trust anybody that also, well, hi, I don't want to sell you anything. I just need 45 minutes just to talk about something, and they will somehow.
Try it. It's not that bad. It's not that bad.
It's not that bad because if you do it like for 5 times, of course, maybe on the first one you will screw up. It won't happen. If yes, perfect. But again, iterative process. Yeah. It's not on the first shot, you know.
May I continue?
Yes.
So I think I'm too young and not experienced to tell something like this, that is it needed to persuade or only to show the action? Because I don't think that customers are curious about the words. I think they want to see the result of the product we provide. So are words needed?
That's usual, like, how to say, misalignment. A lot of salespeople think that we need to show them something, and we shouldn't ask them questions because they don't have time for that. We just have 3 minutes and we will ask two questions. But look at that from the perspective as empathy. We all like to be asked questions. If someone asks you, how are you doing? What are the biggest challenges you have? And you will be surprised at how these people will elaborate on their experiences because they don't have time to be taken care of sometimes.
But they themselves will find out that not only our solution is better than theirs, but they themselves will see the result without words. So, for example, our filtration device, they will use it and it will work. That's all. Maybe it's really simplified, but it is only my perception.
It's important to say what stage you're at, because if you're going and you're trying to understand how your customers live and use products today, you don't want to tell them anything about your product. Okay, so you approach it in a way where you try to understand how they use the competition, what is that they like, what kind of situations they get into, and you don't want to sell. You don't even want to tell them that you're working for a company which is developing this or that. You approach them from a totally different angle. We are researching this topic. That's it, right? And only then, when you are validating, then you are actually looking for the specific segments of people whom you show the product and you ask them to try it. But that's different.
Thanks.
Because it's about the aim and the main purpose of the research. If you want to discover your sales strategy and how to get more door openers and proof of concept of the cooperation with them, it can be about the questions about that, how they are buying the competition and so on. So it's really like important to differentiate between sales calls and the research. And when you learn how to do these like research discovery calls, the magic will happen. We are really like using it also in our like studio, and we did some surveys and research like recently. We went to ask our customers how they like see our proposition, our added value, how their situation looked when they were like considering the cooperation with us. And it really helped us to better define the sales strategy and the offering of our services. And it's really important not to do it only in startups, but in corporates, in organizations such as public sector and so on.
get in touch with us if you have some more questions. We're happy to answer on LinkedIn or email or whatever. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Nice conversation.
Yeah. And thank you all for your attention and interactivity. I really loved the engagement that you shared your perspectives and insights. We have the second startup clinic behind us. I think that it all went pretty well. And tomorrow we will have this office hours, which will be a unique opportunity for you, the startups, to pitch yourselves and get feedback on your value proposition from the regional leaders of VCs. So you can look forward for Neology Ventures, Octagon Ventures, LimeRock, Credo Ventures, Day One Capital, Venture the Future Fund, Crowdberry, Nation One, High Ventures, and Zach also, because you
I will wear a
today.
different hoodie tomorrow.
Cool. So please leave us your feedback for today's session at the platform, and see you tomorrow. Good luck with the preparations and have a nice rest of the day. Bye.